same as we did last time, so I'll start over here. They'll introduce themselves at the end after I give you my brief. You can ask me questions, and you can ask any of them questions specifically to their agency that you may want answered. So why don't we start here?
Sergeant Greg Kellogg, Leroy Police Department.
Bill Sheriff, Genesee County Sheriff. Kevin Riley, New York State Police. Brad Mazer, Under Sheriff, Genesee County Sheriff's Office.
So the point of today's brief is just to give you the final update on this truck shooting involving Joshua Blest. Again, I'll give you some brief details on this. I'll answer some of the questions I've already received from you either via text, phone call, or email. That may answer most of your questions. And again, if you have specific questions that I'm not answering, I will try my best to answer them. The time of the stop by Leroy PD, which started all of this, was at 8:37 p.m. The time of the fatal shot to Blest was at it started at 8:37 p.m. The fatal shot to Blest was at 9:52 p.m. So the total time was an hour and 15 minutes. How many times did Blest fire? That was a question that I repeatedly received. The first shots fired by Blest was at 9:27 in front of the Quickleys in Geneseo. Ironically, it's the same place where he later receives his fatal shot. But that Quickleys where you folks saw the truck come to rest there, that is where he first fired. And again, that was at 9:27 p.m. He struck one of our sheriff's investigators' unmarked car 9 times. A second shot by Blest was just seconds later. That was at the intersection of Country Club Road. That was one round that struck one of our sheriff's deputies' marked cars. The third set of shots by Blest was at 2131 at exit 8. It was the southbound on-ramp. There were 2 rounds that struck a Genesee County Sheriff's car and 2 rounds that struck a Leroy Police Department car. Both of those cars were marked cars. There were several other reports of shots by deputies along that path on the interstate, specifically in the U-turn south of 8, but we did not recover any casings there when it was teched. The total casings that were recovered out of Blest's gun, which was a 9mm Glock, were 24. That was a mixture between shooting locations along the pursuit path as well as the cab of his truck. Inside the truck, Blest was found to be in possession of the Glock with 17-round magazines. If all were fully loaded, potentially he fired 29 rounds. And that also is taking into consideration that that's all he had for magazines, and we don't know if he ever threw one out the window or discarded them along this pursuit path. But what we did recover would ultimately be 29 rounds that he would have fired. The gun also had 6 rounds left in it, along with another fully loaded 17-round magazine. Again, there's more potential for what he actually shot, but the minimum he shot was 24. Again, putting together what we have in the truck, we believe it to be 29, and that's, again, taking into account that we ultimately will never know exactly because he may have discarded magazines along the way. Another question I keep fielding is how many shots did you fire, meaning law enforcement? Total of 7 deputies were actively shooting in this incident. 5 from our office and 2 from the Genesee County Sheriff's Office. So a total of 7 cops were shooting at different points along this. The first round of shots were at the exit 8 off-ramp on the northbound. And at this location, 61 rounds were fired. The second round is just feet up the ramp where it hits 20A, and a total of 17 rounds were fired there. The third round was west of the bridge at exit 8 near the on-ramp to the southbound. There were 3 rounds fired there. The fourth round and the final rounds were at Morgan View and 20A, and there were 48 rounds fired there. So total rounds by everyone fired were 129 by law enforcement. The tractor trailer was hit 91 times. Again, this is based off the evidence we have. It doesn't mean that it wasn't hit more times, because if one went through a side window and more followed through, we can't account for those. So we're putting together recovered casings along with the tech of the truck, which I have some pictures for you. There's enough here that at the end of this you can take them. It'll show the cab, the front side here where a lot of the shots were, as well as the front. If you want additional, we can work on getting those for you as well. Blessed background, again, a common question. Does this relate to other things going on in the country right now, specifically George Floyd? There is no connection that we have currently that puts any connection of those two things being common with this. And in fact, it shows that our investigation shows that we believe Blessed really was on his path to Batavia. And what prompted this and triggered Blessed this day was the proactive traffic stop by the Leroy Police Department. And from that traffic stop, he didn't want to comply with them right off the get-go. And then ultimately, everything that followed was Blessed decisions and Blessed actions in escalating this situation. You already know through the social media that he was some type of militia extremist. He did have anti-police philosophies. And again, I think if you look at the social media for Blessed, you've already seen that. We started working in conjunction with the FBI early on that evening. They reached out to us. We have a good partnership with the local FBI in Rochester. Ultimately, the FBI in Richmond became involved because of the geographical location of where Blessed was from. Ultimately, the FBI conducted search warrants in conjunction with our office on his vehicle. So if you think of his private vehicle, drove to work that day to get onto the rig to drive here. His private vehicle recovered were 3 IED pipe bombs, 1 AK-47, Glock 9mm magazines, and approximately $18,000 in cash. On May 29th, a person down there locally contacted either local law enforcement or the FBI and advised that they had been renting Blessed a room for approximately 3 years. Search was executed and recovered inside that private bedroom were 11 IEDs, another AK-47, this one with a thermal scope, 50 cal rifle, 338 caliber sniper rifle, thousands of dollars worth of ammunition, and approximately $130,000 in cash, along with several manuals on how to build IEDs and how to avoid law enforcement detection. The investigation's continuing. It's not closed, but it is closed, well, close to closed on our end of the police encounters that started in Genesee County and ultimately ended here. We are still working through some different leads and loose ends, so the investigation, again, is open. But the point of today was to give you the answers that many of you have been seeking and many of the people who live in Livingston County have been asking. So we want to give all the answers that we can provide. I truly believe that this day, Blessed did not plan for a major attack on law enforcement. Again, I think it was this traffic stop that set him off and eventually led to all the different things along the path of this pursuit, including him shooting at us and us shooting at him. That doesn't mean that I don't think he had a plan in the future. Based on what was recovered in his vehicle and based on what was recovered in this bedroom, I do believe that he certainly had a plan for the future. What that plan was, I don't have that information, but I do know that our office and all the members of law enforcement behind me, that partnership most likely prevented something much larger in the future. And so, I thank all the members of our office that were involved, all the members of the various agencies behind me. They did truly remarkable work, and I thank all their families too, because these situations are not easy on police officers. They're not easy on the families. So I think for me as sheriff, this couldn't have gone any better other than if he just stopped and turned himself in. I think that could have been the only better result, is if he wouldn't have pushed us to the point where we had to take shots at him. And ultimately, he made those decisions that pushed us to do that. So with that, I'll answer any of the questions that you may have that I may be able to answer. Again, if you have questions for any of the members of law enforcement agencies behind me, they are happy to take your questions as well.
Did he leave any writings, manifesto, or anything like each of you what his intention plan was? And will we ever know?
Yeah, so the information I have is no. I don't have that information, and I think I would as sheriff, that I don't know what his plan was. Just based on what was collected, I believe my opinion as sheriff is he had a plan for the future. What that was, maybe he was still developing. As I said in the last time we met, there's certain questions we're just not going to have the answer to, and that is common in these cases where it ends this way, where we can't interview him. We can't find out what exactly he was thinking. Only he knows that, and he's not here to tell us. But it is extremely concerning on what was recovered, and you put that in conjunction with what we know on his background. He does seem like he was certainly building to something.
Sheriff, do you think he was a lone wolf, or did he have partners?
On this specific incident?
Well, he was by himself.
Yep.
In his truck, right?
Yep, that's correct.
But all those other things that were recovered,
Yeah,
was he doing something by himself or planning something with other people?
You know, I would just be guessing at that. There's nothing to put anybody else on this specific incident in any partnership, collaboration, communication with anybody else. This is solely on him. What he was planning for the future, I don't know. He is on social media. He does have some following. What that following is, I don't know. Those are things we're still reviewing, and ultimately the FBI, I would direct those kind of questions to them based on what they've found and what the future is there. But there's no immediate details to show any immediate concern here and there as far as I know.
What do we know about computer problems? I mean, that can be used as a broad category. I mean, large devices, smaller devices. Did you see them? Do you know?
So the FBI did those search warrants. I would direct those questions to FBI Richmond on what they're going to release or not release. Here, I try to release everything I can. I mean, that's just the way I'm built, and I believe that the people have the right to know we're doing their business. So I'm giving you everything that I have. Beyond that, if it's questions about the pipe bombs or specifics on what was recovered, I would direct you to the FBI in Richmond on that.
Do we also know how he died?
So preliminary, and I'm going to stress preliminary because we don't have the official report from the medical examiner's office, but the preliminary findings, we had an investigator there when they did the autopsy, 3 rounds to the hip and 1 to the head. The head shot was obviously the fatal shot. That's correct.
Could it have been self-inflicted, or is that
No, self-inflicted has been ruled out. So it came from a member of either the Livingston County Sheriff's Office or the Genesee County Sheriff's Office. Both agencies were utilizing long guns with a .223 round.
You said he was going to Batavia. Do you know what he was planning to do, or just driving there for a particular reason?
Yeah, so he's a over-the-road truck driver. He was going there to pick up a load. The trailer of the truck was empty, and so the story does make sense that he was going to Batavia to pick up. We confirmed that he was supposed to go there and pick up, some type of dairy product, and then he would have been heading back out of this county and this state. But again, I think when you look at the details of this, this wasn't an officer on the side of the road that just all of a sudden he developed a plan on. He was stopped, and he didn't like the encounter of just a simple traffic stop. The investigation with Leroy was very routine stop and a simple request for information that obviously escalated quickly.
We had a lot of time to kind of think about this and run through this, what happened. It seemed like it was just chance that kind of put him, or circumstance that put him in our area for him to sort of this powder keg to explode here as opposed to anywhere else.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with that. I've continued, I'm out and about in the county a lot, and residents are like, what is going on in Livingston County? And I keep stressing to them, Livingston County is such a safe county. We've had some odd ones that just end up here, between David Clyde Morgan, that Geneseo PD took a shot at, and he fled, and that case is a unique one. No connection to Livingston County, really no connection to New York State. He's just traveling through, just a simple traffic stop. Then you look at this case. You look at the Walmart case recently. Someone not from our county, just a random thing. So we've had this set of events, this series of events where it's folks not from our county that just end up here. And so the question is, why do they end up here? And I think if you look at between the interstate and the thruway, we're in one of those spots. It's a travel through county. And ultimately, again, I come back to, we are very, very fortunate to have highly qualified, highly trained members of law enforcement here. And when things do come here, they're always handled well, and I'm so proud to serve as sheriff here, and I'm proud of all the members that serve in this county. This was a very unique situation. Someone said to me, oh, that's once in a career. This isn't once in a career. I mean, you could serve multiple careers in law enforcement and never encounter a heavy vehicle that's pretty much impossible to stop unless you have a heavier vehicle, and then add in an active shooter, a guy who's actively trying to kill cops. I mean, that's something that's more Hollywood-esque than what is reality. So when I'm talking to other larger agencies in our area and outside of our area, they're like, I can't believe what you guys dealt with. And I keep going back to, it is a sheer miracle that not one person other than him had no injury, not even a scratch. I mean, nothing. And this went on and on and on. It wasn't a 5-minute ordeal. This was a long duration of him operating a vehicle at high speeds at different times, trying to ram cop cars, no regard for anyone's life, not ours and not anybody else coming at him in the other lane. And then it escalates to firing bullets everywhere. And you think about how far a bullet travels. If it doesn't hit its target, it is just a sheer miracle. But again, I go back to, I'm proud of all the deputies, all our partners we worked with, that this is what you train for. And just because we've never trained on something like this, the other training pays off. They were calm, they were collected, and they put that into action that day. And that is truly, I firmly believe, why the end result was what it was, and that no cops and no civilians were hurt. And I'm thankful every single day. Believe me, this is an incident that it's a difficult one. It's difficult to be involved in. I've been worried about my guys left and right, because just because they weren't hurt, meaning injured physically, the mental part of this is really, it's consuming. And even though everything went well, everyone still like plays out different things and worries about the other person. So it's been a really difficult thing for our office to go through. But again, I'm proud of all the members, and I'm proud of our partners. Yeah, so I would put that question to FBI in Richmond, because we asked them in conjunction with our office to take care of everything down there. Just geographically, it worked out better, and it made sense. So FBI Richmond would be the one to answer those questions. I'm fully transparent here. What they provide to you or don't provide to you, that's going to be in their purview, not mine. But those things have been investigated. I can confirm that those folks have been talked to. We've thought of all different angles on this, and really the main thing for us here in this county is to provide our investigation to give the best answers to the people we serve here in this county. And then at the same time, paralleled with that, is there something bigger here? To your point, is there other people involved? Is there another bigger event planned? All those things. And based on what that investigation has relayed, I do not believe that to be true. I believe that he was building towards something based on what was recovered from his car in this private bedroom. But I haven't seen, I don't believe exists any real hard blueprint of what he planned to do, and maybe he was still developing that through. But there is no doubt in my mind this man was a very real threat to a lot of people.
Sheriff, is there a particular reason why deputies fired where and when they did?
Yes, I mean, the biggest thing that comes into this is safety. He's firing at us, and as soon as he fired at us at Quickly's, that's when lethal force on him would be justified. The problem is, you may ask, well, how come it took from Quickly's to the interstate to end this, or potentially end this? And the answer is, when you're on 20A, he was a very good driver. The way he was driving that truck like a go-kart, steering a wheel, shifting gears, and shooting was something I've never seen. And I remember thinking, as I'm behind it, this guy is extremely dangerous, but he's a good driver, and he's putting rounds into cars that, again, right live action, we knew he hit that car at Country Club, and I thought, man, that was a shot, you know. So I knew that we were up against a big threat, but we needed a safe area to try and end that threat. And when you're going down 20A, there's homes all over it. The interstate was really, when he got on the interstate, I was relieved. I felt like we could take action on the interstate and really engage him there, and it would ultimately be a shootout between us and him and no civilians, the best we could. The hyper-reach iPaws that went out to phones, that was a saving grace to a lot of folks abiding by it. And I stress a lot of folks, because some folks got it and then they raced out there to film it. I would ask in the future, please don't do that. That causes us more concern. There was one woman I saw on the side of the road, and there's nothing we can do. We're running traffic ahead and behind, and she's right out near the roadway, and that's concerning. That's making our jobs more difficult. But I do stress that most of the people got off the roads, made our jobs easier, prevented loss of life, loss of injury. So when we got to the interstate, that was really where we would want to have this engagement go down. When he hit the U-turn, we felt like at exit 8, I asked if there was anybody on the ramp at 8 on the bridge, and that probably would have been where it ended right there, because we had 5 of our members on top of exit 8, and if he went under the bridge, it would have ended right there. He ultimately exited, and so all 5 of those our members had to reassemble in different places where they could keep themselves as safe as possible, but also be able to get good shots onto him in the large truck. So I every time I talk about this, I keep stressing the deputies, but a lot of members of our office put themselves in harm's way that night, and they didn't always have great cover where they were shooting, but they knew what we were up against, and they knew how serious it was. And so again, I commend them, and I commend all the other partner agencies and the Genesee County deputies that engaged in the ultimate at Morgan View on 20A.
And did it happen at Morgan View and 20A because there was an open farm field on the other side? Was that strategic where you were?
Yeah, so as we were coming down 20A, one of our members came on the air, and I asked dispatch, can you repeat who that was? And they advised who it was. And he's a sniper on our SWAT team. So I had said, you know, if you get the shot, you're clear to take it. He was more west of the ultimate location. But as we came down 20A, a few of our members hooked up with a few of Genesee County's members, and we were advised in the pursuit behind the truck that there were long guns there, and then they ultimately engaged that operator at that location, because now there's construction there, but prior there wasn't. It was an open field, and again, you're thinking about the safety of where your bullet's going to go. And so again, I commend all these folks that were engaged in this, whether they played a dispatch role, whether they played a deputy, trooper, officer role, whether they played a shooting role. All these folks did extremely, extremely well.
Do you know which member of law enforcement fired the shot that killed Wes?
I do and I don't, and the reason I say that is because it's down to two, one member of the Genesee County Sheriff's Office and one of our members, and we're firing the same round, a .223 round, and that round wasn't recovered, and it may be because of the impact in the head, and just how that plays out. But right now, I do not have an answer. It could be either one of those members, and ultimately, I'm not going to release who our shooters were or who their shooters were.
Will there ever be a way to determine that definitively, or is it always going to be a question mark?
I think there's a good possibility it's going to be a question mark. Doesn't mean that's 100%. Again, I mean, there's still forensics going on, but traditionally, if you recover that round, then we would have a good chance of determining who fired that shot. But since we did not, then I don't have a definitive answer on that right now. Any other questions? Any questions for the members behind me? All right, folks. Well, thank you again for your patience. I know you've been asking me a lot, and I believe me, I want to get you the answers as fast as I can, but I also want the answers to be accurate. So thank you for your patience, and appreciate you coming down. The photos are up here. There's enough for each one of you to take one of them. If you want them in an email form, I can send them out. Just shoot me a text or an email, and I'll get them out to you. Yes. Sure. No, I'll answer that because that'll be the next thing, because I brought up David Clyde Morgan. As I said then, I'm